Hi, welcome to Astro Journey UK. In today's video, what I'm going to be doing is talking through the past year and a little bit of astrophotography, just to share the images that I've taken and talk a little bit about those images, just so you can learn from some of my experiences and understand a bit more about the images that I've taken. So if you'd like to see more, then keep watching. So in looking at the images that I produced, I've realised that I've got 145 images over the past year and a bit, which I was quite surprised at how many images I've actually taken, because probably you all know this as well, it kind of feels like it's literally always cloudy, there's always rain, etc. But yeah, managed 145 images, which is pretty crazy really. I think some of those, to be fair, were sort of reprocesses of other images, so that's part of my journey as well, in terms of just understanding a little bit more about the processing of images, also pre-processing as well as post-processing. I think I might have talked about this in the past, that sort of astrophotography as a hobby, you might sort of think it's all about the capture and the equipment and the telescope that you're using and the camera. Yes, those things help to an extent, but in reality I think it's probably about 80% of pre and post processing of that image data, and just 20% of image capture. Once you've got nailed and your stars are in focus, your guiding's good, then yeah, that bit's the easy part, I'd probably say. So I think around November time, we're in November 2021, I did a bit of experimentation with mosaic imaging, and I did a video on this which I'll sort of link into this video. And it was a bit of a demonstration of how you can do mosaic imaging using the ASI Air device and the website Telescopius. At the time, the ASI Air devices didn't have inbuilt mosaic sort of planning software, which they do now, but yeah, it was a bit of a demonstration of that. I ended up just with this monochrome image. There was I did get to sort of start the oxygen data, but then the clouds rolled in and it was cloudy for a while, so I had to leave that one. But I do love the detail that you can get from being able to use panels, but my goodness, sort of processing this and getting everything lined up, I had the suitable amount of overlap. You've just got to watch the stars on the actual overlaps of those mosaics as well. But I think the learning activity that I got from this was actually, if you're going to be imaging multiple panels, then do those panels together each night. So make sure you do the bits of the whole target each night that you're imaging, to try and get the same conditions, that when you're stacking it, then you don't end up with one panel being really good seeing and everything, and then the other panel not so much. During November, also sort of took and processed an image of M31 Andromeda. This was with the 80ED Pro, 600mm, kind of zoomed in, sort of just trying to get a bit up close and personal with M31. Managed to get some nice detail out of it. I think I had some issues with flats here, and maybe sort of doing all of the background extraction. Maybe another one to revisit in terms of processing, because you can see a little bit of banding in the image, which is usually an indication that that sort of background extraction hasn't quite worked properly. Tail end of November time 2021, I ended up purchased a Red Cat 51 telescope, which if you've seen my previous videos, you'll know that I'll absolutely love this telescope. So I'd started to use that. I'd also created a second rig out of this as well, so bought the guide scope with it, bought another camera, and got the 183 MC Pro one-shot color camera to go with this scope, because it matches from a sampling perspective. So all of that said, I then sort of started to point it towards targets like the Soul Nebula and the Heart Nebula, and just really loved this combination. I think it was relatively nice and easy. I'd definitely recommend this as a beginner, advanced beginner, if that's even a thing. Getting into it, once you've sort of gone through your SLRs and you want to sort of start to progress onto other things, using a dedicated telescope, then I think this is a really good setup for that particular type of astrophotographer. But really like this image. So the Sol Nebula was about 6 hours 45 minutes with this particular target. And then my image of the Heart Nebula. So this was with the same setup, the Red Cat. This was an hour and a half of integration time, which is kind of surprising from the level of detail that I've got here. But yeah, I think it was these two images that just made me think, yeah, I really like this scope, and it's definitely one of my favourites. Go-to scopes. And then getting into the tail end of November, beginning of December, it's kind of obligatory to start imaging the Orion Nebula, isn't it? I mean, it comes up. It's always a nice time of year, certainly from an astrophotography perspective, to look in the southern sky or southeastern sky, and then begin to see the Orion constellation come back again after its holiday over summer. And then there's just so many targets in that whole constellation that I just love Orion. This particular image is 2 hours 6 minutes exposure time. Into December as well, still loving the Red Cat, and sort of pointed it off towards M45 and capturing the Pleiades, or the Seven Sisters. Like this image as well. It's got 3 hours and 30 minutes of integration time with this. So moving on to 2022, which was the original plan for this video, but I realised I'd missed some images last time I did sort of my first year in astrophotography, so this is my second year and a bit ultimately. Yep, still loving that Red Cat 51 telescope, and this is an image of the Flaming Star and the Tadpole Nebula, are actually on screen. It's actually the Tadpole Nebula and the Flaming Star. This whole area of the night sky is just like a fascinating location. If you zoom into the Tadpole Nebula and you actually see the tadpoles, it's like, okay, that's pretty cool. But just when you kind of step back from an astrophotography perspective, probably a few hundred light years, you step back and see the wider view. It's just, yeah, a spectacular sight. This was taken with about 3.5 hours of integration time, which I think what I'm going to be doing sort of longer term is spending more and more time on integration time. But I think for a lot of targets it feels like sort of 3 hours is almost like the bare minimum these days to get a satisfying exposure from it. Used the Red Cat as well to go back to the California Nebula as well. Got 8 hours and 20 minutes on this particular target. I think I would have taken this with the Optolong L Pro, so just got the full colour spectrum, full RGB image of this. I do love the California Nebula. I think I could probably work this a bit more to get a bit more detail out of it. There's a lot of red there, but it's actually, well, it's a lot of ionised hydrogen gas, so what do you expect? But a nice image, I think. Some of the year as well, I sort of went back and revisited some data. So this particular image of the Fish Head Nebula, I think I was experimenting a little bit more with trying to get the Hubble palette colours and things like that, kind of getting a bit closer. But I think in all honesty, the data that I got on this, I think I could do with a bit more data to benefit from. But yeah, still, it's always worth, when you get a chance, to go back and reprocess your own data. You'll find that typically you'll end up with a better image each time. This next image, taken in January 2022, was it's just an HA image of the Orion Nebula. I think what I'd done in the past is I would have taken the Orion Nebula just with one flat sort of 5-minute exposure, and basically you always end up blowing out the core, and so you have to take a number of different lengths of exposure to be able to get the detail of all of the dust, and then also the detail in the core. And that's what I managed to do with this particular image. It's about 4 hours worth of exposure time or integration time just with an HA filter. But yeah, love the detail and all of the dust, and you can just zoom in and just get completely lost in just the textures and everything. Well, one thing I always kind of find slightly ironic really with astrophotography is we hate clouds, and yeah, we're just really annoyed whenever it's cloudy, and it just kind of ruins our ability to take images of the night sky. But in a way, we're just photographing clouds of hydrogen gas anyway, and we go, oh, look at this, it's really pretty, and look at all of the texture and everything. We could just take pictures of the clouds during the day and say exactly the same thing, but hey, I guess maybe it's not as challenging, so maybe that's why people don't really like to do it. Just going to share this image quickly. not happy with this. I don't think I ever posted it as well. So this is me revisiting M31 again. 3.5 hours of integration time here, but I think this is where sort of pre-processing is really important. I think basically when I was doing this, I've got some frames in there that are just junk, and I shouldn't have actually included them in the stacking process, and just literally couldn't process this to get anything nice out of it. Yeah, terrible. We'll move on. I think we move on to February time. Still, you've got the Orion constellation sort of moving through the southern sky. So pointed the Red Cat telescope at the Horsehead and Flame Nebula. Absolutely love this target. You literally, I can't get enough of seeing this particular nebula. It's just, yeah, awesome. Got about 6.5 hours with this to capture this level of detail, and this would be in a Bortle 6 sky as well. Challenging with the whole processing of good old Alnitak, which is an insanely bright star in that part of the sky, but yeah, it is what it is. And then also in February, again, did a bit of constellation photography. Because I love Orion so much, I think I'm going to keep trying this and keep trying to add data to it if I can get the composition exactly the same each time. But I love just seeing Barnard's Loop in this image. You can see the Horsehead and you can see Orion. You can also see very faintly the Witch's Head Nebula in the right-hand portion of the image, but there's some kind of nasty gradients that I wasn't able to control in this. Moving on to tail end of February, and there's a little bit of galaxy season sort of cropping in here, and I did some experimenting with not going really tight with the galaxies as well. It's nice to get that detail, but also I like to take a step back sometimes and just see what else is there. And took these images with the Red Cat telescope, so about 3 hours and 45 minutes of this particular target, and then just experimented a little bit with PixInsight in terms of putting the overlays of putting in the coordinates of the image, overlaying it onto the image itself, and then taking that next step and showing the galaxies, and just just being blown away that you go, oh, they're just all stars. No, they're not. They're actually, there's a ridiculous number of galaxies in there, and just, yeah, I find that always makes you feel a bit small, is probably the easiest way of saying it. But yeah, it is what it is. This next image, again, of the Horsehead and Flame Nebula, I took this down on the south coast near where my parents live. It's a Bortle 4 area as well, so managed to, yeah, just get more detail out of that particular image. It's around about the same integration time, and I don't know whether, maybe it's the fact that processing is such a random nature thing, in a way that you can process an image what you think is the same each time and get a different image each time. Maybe this is to do with the fact it was darker skies, or maybe I just processed it different and managed to pull out more detail. I'm not too sure. If you think it's just processing, then yeah, leave me a comment. So on to March now, galaxy season still. So I revisited the M81 galaxy. This would have been with my Newtonian telescope, so the Skywatcher 200p, and also using the 533 MC Pro, so a one-shot colour camera. Quite surprised I even sort of just took this image and stuck with it, because it's literally only 30 minutes integration. But yeah, that Skywatcher 200p, because it's a 200mm aperture, and it's actually an f5 scope, so it's reasonably fast, certainly when you compare it to the 6.3 that the 80 ED Pro is. There's a surprise, I should have known that. There's M81 where I got 4 hours worth of integration time. Here's just a good example of being able to see the difference between 30 minutes integration time and 4 hours integration time. So yeah, don't skimp on collecting your subs. So moving on to the tail end of March now, and yeah, in March I got this opportunity. Basically, I was keeping an eye out for the weather. What I wanted to do is do a bit of Milky Way photography. So I sort of looked for a dark sky site, managed to find somewhere, find an Airbnb that was fairly cheap in a Bortle 2 sky, right on the west coast of Wales in the Western Peninsula. I thought, that's fantastic, but yeah, you've got to know that the weather's going to be good before you kind of go all the way out there. I managed to luck out, really. I was looking at the forecast and there was a solid sort of 2-3 days of clear skies, and I think it was the Monday before I was going out there, which I was going out on the Thursday night. Yeah, I noticed it was still clear, booked the holiday, or booked the Airbnb, Managed to get the time off as well, fairly last minute, which is fantastic. And yeah, it was just a great time, just immersing myself in astrophotography for a couple of days. So thank you very much to my wife and family for letting me indulge in this hobby. In terms of the actual photography that I did there, I wouldn't say it was massively fruitful at the end of the day, but I really enjoyed myself. So I think at the end of the day, I think that's the bit that's the most important. I just really wanted to actually experience what being in a Bortle 2 night sky is actually like, and comparing it to Bortle 6, it's a different league. I mean, you see in this photo of the California Nebula, which is I think just a single exposure, and you can see the trees in the foreground there. Yeah, you don't see that many stars, but you do see an awful lot of them. It's really nice to just be able to see the cloudiness of the Milky Way and just see a huge amount of stars and just be really peaceful, and just the fact that it's completely silent, there's no light pollution anywhere. You can remove all of the light pollution filters from my kit that I took with me. I think I went out there with Skywatcher Star Adventurer mount, my EQ5 mount, my EQ6 mount, all of my cameras, 2 telescopes, cameras and lenses. Just had a really good time there, so it was fantastic. I got to take this obligatory selfie looking at the Milky Way on top of quite a nice site, but I think what I hadn't anticipated was quite how the light pollution from the other cities further south in like Aberystwyth and things in Wales, how they still sort of impact the night sky, which is a bit of a pity, but did also get a chance to take this panorama of the Milky Way. I think the one thing that I kind of take away from this is actually I'd like to do more tracked Milky Way photography, because I just love the intense colours and detail that you can get from the Milky Way with a tracked image, rather than this, which was single exposures then merged together in Photoshop. On to June now, so about halfway through 2022. Apologies if this video is going on. If you're still watching, thank you very much. If you're not, then yeah, you've missed out, because the best bits are at the end. North American Nebula, this is 10 hours on here, so I think this is the penny finally dropping in terms of, you know what, make sure you gather as much integration time as possible. So it's a fairly close-up image of the North American Nebula here, and this would have been with the Red Cat 51 again, which quite like this target. Always good to go back to. You got the Pelican there. I think what I need to do is actually sort of just do a 2-panel mosaic of this, just to get a slightly wider field, but still with all of the awesome level of detail of this particular focal length and camera combination. Basically June, July, August type time, captured 2 targets that I've really been desperate to get at some point. The first of those is the Eagle Nebula, or the Pillars of Creation, which is that iconic image taken by the Hubble Space Telescope. Every astrophotographer, I think, always wants to sort of take their version of it. Maybe I could revisit this with the 200p maybe to get a little bit closer, but this was taken sort of narrowband image, taken with the 80ED Pro and the 1600mm Pro monochrome camera. Managed to get some of the detail in the Pillars of Creation, certainly not far enough back to actually see the Eagle Nebula in any wider context, but it was really the Pillars of Creation that I was after. During that summer as well, I slewed the telescope over to M17, I think it's the Omega Nebula. I think just partly to capture it for the Messier catalogue. I'm going to be honest, I'm not really a huge fan of this particular target, but yeah, I've captured it and I can kind of move on. But the other one that I really wanted to talk about is the Bubble Nebula, and then you can also see the Salt and Pepper Cluster on the right hand side here. Yep, quite a small target really. This is taken with the Newtonian, so the sort of 1 meter focal length 200mm aperture telescope, with my monochrome camera. Just love that Bubble Nebula, just sort of surrounded by gas to just make it look interesting and stand out and pop. Excuse the pun, but yeah, just love this target, and nice to sort of see the star cluster on the right hand side as well. I've sort of done some images where I've gone in and reprocessed things, tried a starless image, and then tried the 4X process, which just comes out with some different different crazy colours, some golds and yellows and reds and things, which is brilliant. Moving on to August now. So August, not really much went on in August apart from went on holiday with the family to the island of Kos, and this wasn't intentional, but I did end up finding out, oh hang on a minute, we're on the south of the island, there's nothing else for a good number of miles further south, so no light pollution. Maybe I should take some astrophotography stuff with me. Perfect time for sort of Milky Way core and everything, and being that further south as well compared to the UK, the core is actually that much higher up as well, so really lucked out there and just really enjoyed that. So took my Star Adventure Pro mount with me, took my digital SLR, the modified one, and just a wide angle lens to get as much of that Milky Way in there as possible. Tracked it using the mount, stacked it using Starry Landscape Stacker, I think it is, or Starry Sky Landscape Stacker, one of those combinations to get this image. And my goodness, it was a bit of a learning curve from a processing perspective. I used a bit of PixInsight, a bit of Affinity Photo to get something that I was happy with. I reckon, in all honesty, if I went back and did this again, I'm not sure if I'd actually be able to get as good an image back as well. And then just did a composite of that with a foreground as well. So you got the, sadly, light pollution from the hotel, but yeah, the beach in the foreground. Really, I love this image. I really do like this image. I also love the thing about sort of Milky Way, tracked Milky Way images, of being able to see just those nebula that you kind of zoom into, like the Eagle Nebula and the Mega Nebula and the Trifid Nebula, etc. The lagoons in there as well. Just being able to see those dotted and just seeing them within the expanse of the night sky as well. It's just fantastic. I can see why the likes of Alan Wallace likes to do nightscapes, because they're pretty inspiring, really. So getting on to the tail end of August, getting in the home straight here now. So back to the Red Cat, back to the nasty Amp Glow 183 MC Pro camera, and got the Lobster Claw and the Bubble and the Salt and Pepper Nebula. I'm not sure the bits in the bottom right what they're actually called, but really nice view. This I quite like this, and I think that's probably why it's a background on my iPad. But yeah, there's a lot going on here, a lot of colour, a lot of space, just an awesome image. This is a little bit over 5 hours worth of integration time, and I think 5 hours is kind of just doing this target justice. So here's the Wizard Nebula that I took with the Skywatcher 80 ED Pro and the 533 MC Pro one-shot colour camera. I got 11 hours of integration time on this, and then the obligatory revisit of M31 Andromeda, an image that I'm definitely pleased with, without a doubt. This was taken with the Red Cat and the 183 MC Pro camera. I will put against the image the integration time, but it would have been a good amount of integration time, because I was determined to get the best image I can get of the Andromeda galaxy here, and I think I've got that. I've got some nice colour of the stars in the background. The stars are in control. Yeah, I think this is where you can begin to see, hopefully, improvements being made. There's a quick SHO image of the California Nebula. I think what this was is just sort of playing about with Luke Matico's scripts. I think that he provided and worked with Bill Blanchard to be able to create sort of false SHO images from HOO data, basically by sort of taking the separate channels and then dropping the weak one, and then replicating and stretching the other one, I think it is, and then you can actually get a false SHO image, and then just getting some nice blues and golds out of this. The next target is of the Eastern Western Veil Nebula. Definitely my best Veil Nebula image that I've taken to date. I kind of wished maybe that I'd composed this in the right way, that I could then just sort of move the scope down and then get a nice sort of portrait 2-frame mosaic out of this image, just to get the rest of the all of that wispy detail kind of going through there. But love this image, love the the colours that I've managed to extract out of this, and it's all literally it's all experimentation, and sort of you can stretch things and you can see it, and then it's all about selective colour management and things like that, which is why going back to the whole 80% challenge, I think, is always the thing. And then another sort of revisit of the California Nebula here. Another bit of a play about with the SHO palette. So this is 7 and 3/4 hours worth of integration time for this particular image. And yeah, I just love with this particular processing, just learning as I'm doing this processing and just getting the different colours, being able to extract different colours from. Sometimes what you see is just like a sea of red, and yeah, the colour detail is there, but it's not always obvious. Was it back in November last year, so November 2022, yeah, falling in love with like super wide field views, and I got this image, and to be fair, I'd forgotten about this image until I've just seen it. So just being able to see the North America Nebula and a bit of the, I'm going to pronounce this wrong, Seda region in the bottom left hand corner, just love this image, and just being able to see these sort of floating clouds of gas in the depths of space. So it was an odd one to process. I mean, it's 1.5 hours worth of integration time. Again, would have been taken with my SLR and a camera lens. But yeah, just being able to, there's a ridiculous amount of stars in this image, which you won't really be surprised given that it's in the Milky Way and everything. But yeah, you've got to try and control those stars without it looking too unnatural, without a starless image and all of that sort of thing. And personally, I think I've done a nice job out of it. The stars are still there. You can sort of still see where there's like lots of clusters of stars where it's lighter in some places. But I think when I was first processing this, I was thinking, my flat's no good. Is it just odd vignetting? Is it just odd noise and things? But yeah, I love this image, and yeah, definitely need to print this one out, to be fair. So getting into December, the end of the year, and actually ended up sort of purchasing a couple of bits of kit. Finally ended up getting the 2600mm Pro camera, which is an absolute beast of a camera. Just in terms of it being a 16-bit camera over, I can't remember what I think it's 12 bits, I think the 1600 is. And just the fact that those extra bits just improve the graduation of all of the different shades of colour that you can get from images, and just the sheer detail and just like everything about that camera. I think whenever you take an HA image with that camera, it's just amazing. I think that one thing that's really got over the 1600 is whenever you take an image of a bright star, there was just this really annoying sort of reflection thing going on, which was just really annoying. You'd have a nice image and it'd just be destroyed by this odd reflection in the camera. And I don't know, I have a lot of ZWO products, and sometimes I think, why do I buy them still when they have some things that blatantly I don't think should really be there, given that what they're targeted at. But yeah, the 2600 is an awesome camera, as long as I don't get that damn oil leak. That will really irritate me if that happens. I'm just a starless version of this. Just get back to the cloud thing. Yeah, just beauty in clouds, and sort of the details of the darks and lights and things like that, and just the contrast, and where you can obviously see sort of the stars are illuminating parts of the HA. It's awesome, really is. So another image of the Pac-Man Nebula. I think I was taking this. The reason why I took this target was partly because I was trying to image things like the Horsehead Nebula and the Christmas tree cluster that are in the southern sky, but I've got two really big trees either side, and so therefore I can end up wasting a lot of the night waiting for it to come into view, and then when it disappears from view. So there was a gap. If you kind of look up, I can actually sort of get through a gap in the two trees and capture the Pac-Man Nebula as well this time of year. So this was taken with the 2600mm Pro. I don't think I've even shared this image anywhere yet, or even done a video on the 2600 yet. Again, you can just sort of see the bits of process improvement versus camera improvement. I really quite like this image as well. The stars are just like properly pin sharp. The ones that are just like tiny stars, there's a good amount of colour in the stars as well, And then there was also a good amount of detail in the nebula, so yeah, really quite like this image. I've got this in here because, yeah, things aren't always great. So when I was down at my parents' last, I actually went up to the South Downs, down to the Coast Guard cottages that are near Cookmere Haven and the Seven Sisters. Had in my mind I wanted to get the Orion constellation composite image over the Coast Guard cottages. It turns out the weather, even though the forecast was meant to be good, was abysmal. It was really insanely windy, which meant that, yeah, there were a few clouds, but literally the clouds were moving so fast that they would literally trash most of my subs of the Orion constellation, which is a bit of a pain, but there will be other times I'll be able to do this. But yeah, I captured this image of the Orion constellation composited on with the Coast Guard cottages in the foreground. It's okay, it's definitely not an award winner, but yeah, I think maybe if I can sort of tone it down a bit more, make it a little bit more darker and a bit more moody, maybe I can get away with it a bit more. But yeah, that was the tail end of the year, so that was 27th of December I took that. And then the other final image, again with the 2600, no sorry, this isn't with the 2600, this is with the 183. So taken with Red Cat 183 of the Elephant Trunk Nebula. Been meaning to get this for a while. Took this with the L-Extreme filter. Got about 4 hours of exposure time with this particular image, and went through that whole sort of fake SHO processing to get the golds and the blues. I do really quite like this image. It feels quite sort of punchy and nice. The thing that does punch out, which really irritates me again, is that amp glow on the the right hand side, which if you're looking at this on Instagram, it's fine because you can't see that sort of thing, but when you look at it full size on the monitor, it just keeps drawing your eye to it, which is annoying, but it is what it is. I'm going to leave it at that. That's my year and a bit, or past year and a bit of astrophotography. I think I'll probably do these each year now. But yeah, hope you enjoyed the video. Hope you enjoyed seeing the progression over the past year and a half. I think if you're getting into the hobby, it's interesting and it's important to know that literally people don't take amazing photos to begin with. There's a ridiculous amount of learning that's involved in this hobby. Yes, there's expensive kit and things, but you can do things with cheaper kit, and you can get fantastic images with cheaper kit. But yeah, it's just there hopefully as a source of encouragement, and I hope you enjoyed the video. So I think I'll leave it at that really, and thank you very much for watching, and clear skies.